Welcome back to the Metro on WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Tia Graham. And religion once played a huge role as a third space, a communal space for people to come together and to connect. And not just to praise and give thanks, but to talk a little politics and how communities are being impacted by policy changes around them. So what role does religion play in uncertain times? Protests against President Donald Trump's executive order to activate more than 4,000 National Guard members and 700 Marines into Los Angeles has sparked more unrest across the country. This weekend, the No Kings protest is scheduled in multiple cities with people from all backgrounds calling for action, and that includes religious leaders. Reverend Barry Randolph is the leader of the Church of the Messiah in Detroit's Island View neighborhood. He's a lifelong Detroiter, a graduate of Martin Luther King High School, and he attended Wayne State University. Reverend Barry recently spoke at a press conference calling folks to action peacefully to hit the streets this Saturday for the statewide No King protests against President Donald Trump. Reverend Barry joins us right now. Reverend Barry, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Good afternoon. How are you? Or good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Not afternoon just yet. I know we're getting through right now. We're getting through this day already. But Reverend Barry, it's great to speak with you this morning. Right now, there are protests happening in Los Angeles against immigration raids that have increased under the Trump administration. President Trump has sent thousands of National Guard troops and hundreds of U.S. Marines to that city. You spoke recently at a press conference about what happens when a National Guard is sent to cities like Detroit. I'm going to play a quick clip for you.
In Detroit, we know what happens when the government sends the troop in and threatens its own citizens, like it's an occupied territory. It's a combustible mix that we never, ever want to see happen again.
Reverend Barry, what concerns you most about what you're seeing in L.A. right now?
Well, it makes me think about things that had happened in the past when cities had become occupied, like Detroit, back in 1967. And, of course, that was a different situation. But you just want to make sure that there is no overreach and that citizens are protected and people's rights are being maintained. You really want to make sure that the peace is kept and that the community is looked out for.
And what rights are under attack as we see President Donald Trump and his military action towards U.S. citizens in Los Angeles right now?
Well, we got to be concerned about things like when Dr. King spoke and he talked about, how military action against citizens can go a little bit too far. Law and order is one thing. But also, too, you want to make sure that people's rights are maintained, that we are looked at as human beings, and that our cities are not being occupied, but more so people's rights are being maintained.
So, during the press conference yesterday, speaking about the No Kings protests across the country, but more specifically in the state of Michigan, let's talk about the spiritual commitment that Dr. King spoke of when holding nonviolent protests. You spoke a little bit about it in that press conference yesterday, but Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. urged for equality and justice while remaining peaceful, demanding those rights. If you go back as far as the inception of this country, religion and those who followed it found a way to fight power using the resources they had, like historic churches that helped enslaved Africans find a way to freedom. Can you talk about the role of a religious leader right now within the time we're living in?
Yeah, when you think about it today, we still have to fight the good fight. And when you think about people like Dr. King, the church was the place where people learned about their rights. It was the place where people got organized, and they learned how to do peaceful protest, and they learned what their rights were. They learned what the rights of the community were, and the church was a safe place. It was a safe place where you learned. It was a safe place where you organized, and it was the place where you learned to be able to do things like peaceful protest. We have a moral obligation to be able to make sure that the dignity of all human beings are looked after. So that's why it's critically important that times like these that the church stands up.
Yeah. And, what can be said about the role of religion right now? We often hear church and state must not, they must be separate. We shouldn't bring those two things together. But what role is important right now? Like you said, to get out and be loud. But what role is important for the church right now?
Well, the thing about it is the church has always stood up. Religious organizations have always stood up. And when we talk about things like the separation of church and state, we're not talking about endorsing candidates or political leaders or anything like that. We're just talking about maintaining people's civil rights and maintaining their humanity and making sure that we're doing what we're called to do. In a Christian religion, Jesus spoke and he reminded us of what it is that we're supposed to do. And, you know, we're human. And any time that there is a threat against any group of human beings, we need to kind of pay attention to that. It makes me think about Dr. King when he said, injustice anywhere is a threat against justice everywhere. So we need to be careful.
And once again, speaking of church and being this third space that it once was, especially what it held within Black communities, but in all communities across the United States of America, it stands to be a third place for people to learn and to learn about their community members and to learn about their rights. And now we're seeing, you know, like we talked about a little bit earlier, lack of folks going to church. So can you talk about that space that is possibly missing due and that knowledge that's missing because church no longer holds such an important space in some folks' lives?
Yeah, it's interesting. Ever since I believe it was 2007, churches or religious organizations as a whole have lost about a third of the population that has been there. And I believe that what people want to see more than anything else is they like to be able to see the sermon more than they hear it. And they want to be able to see the church stand up and be that voice that it's been in years past. And I think a lot of churches, for the most part, and a lot of religious organizations are doing that. But I think over the years, some have gotten away from that. And I think that is the reason why a lot of people currently don't go the way that they used to. I don't believe that that there are less people who actually believe in God or a higher being. I believe it's just as many people. But I think what they're looking for is the organism of church, the organism of what we believe, and not necessarily just the organization of it.
We're talking about nonviolent protests happening this weekend and religion's role during these times of unrest. Our guest is Reverend Barry Randolph, the lead pastor of the Church of the Messiah right in the Island View neighborhood. Reverend Barry, we've been talking a little bit, you're using religion to excite people to take action and to motivate people to take action. But there are a lot more secular people like we're talking about right now. You said in 2007, a third of parishioners were lost. So let's just talk about, is it harder to bring people out through the medium of religion today than it was before?
I believe that the medium of religion is just as important as it's always been. There is still a large segment of people who still believe in the importance of religion and what it is that we're supposed to do as human beings. Our connection to be that force for good, to be able to stand up for the dignity of every human being. I believe that that's within all of us. And I don't believe that you need to be somebody who's religious in order to be able to do that. But I think that a lot of times when there is an issue that's actually facing all of us, because we all share something in common when it comes down to oppression, that if we don't stand up, and if we don't stand up and be the people that we're called to be, we'll be in trouble. You have to remember, this is the United States of America. We have the right to be able to stand. We have the right to peaceful protest. We have a right to have our voices heard. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing right now.
Now, Reverend Barry, you all do it a little different at the Church of the Messiah in terms of the way that you were bringing people in, especially bringing in the younger generation of folks. For example, you have 1 hour church services, but you make sure to be in the field actually doing the work. And I do want to talk to you a little bit about the Church of Messiah itself and how it lends to what we're seeing in the society today. Some of the work that goes into motivating folks to get out and hit the streets or motivating folks to learn a little bit more about their community and whatnot. So can you talk about the Church of Messiah's role right now?
Yeah, so we do a lot when it comes to looking out for the community and neighborhood. So we have built or rehabbed over 200 units of affordable housing. We also own 49 vacant lots. We believe you cannot gentrify a neighborhood if you own it. We're also the internet provider for our community and neighborhood. When we got started somewhere around 2015, 16, 40% of Detroit didn't have the internet. So we found a way to become an internet provider. So we provide that internet if you cannot afford it, if you live in the Island View neighborhood. We also do workforce development to be able to help people to be able to learn the skilled trade so that they can get a job. There's a business incubation center inside of the church, too, where if you have a business idea, we can actually help you be able to get that off the ground. We have an 84-member marching band, which is a literacy program which helps students get into college on full-ride music scholarships. So it's an educational opportunity for people to be able to go off to higher education. So it's so many different ways that we can help build community neighborhood. One of the things that we've learned is for the young people who come to Church of the Messiah, and we have a large influx of young people, and part of that is because they see activism combined with spirituality. And because they see that, they see the church in the community, building the neighborhood, working with the people, educating kids, providing the jobs, helping people go to school, providing the resources to help people come from the bottom, working to eradicate poverty by changing people's lives in a tangible way. So it's taking what we believe, taking the word of God and making it something tangible to be able to help people change their lives.
Which is such an important note there, because I hear oftentimes young people talk about, I'm spiritual, I'm not necessarily religious, or I'm spiritual, or I believe in this or I believe in that. But what you're saying is that connection and that intersectionality there with activism brings them right to where they should be with the Church of the Messiah.
Oh, absolutely, because the thing is, we found out they don't reject God. They just reject the package that churches put God in. Mm-hmm. So for the most part is getting involved in all aspects of people's lives to be able to help them be the best that they can possibly be. On so many different levels, I always tell people, because I am a Christian and I respect people's beliefs, but as a Christian man, I always tell them things like, when you see Jesus, he was in the highways and byways. It wasn't just about being in a building, but it was being where the people were, meeting them where they are, and then helping them to be able to get to the next level.
Reverend Berry, we just going back a little bit, you were talking about the lots that you all have in the Island View neighborhood. Can you talk about what's going on some of those lots right now?
Yeah, so we have a project that's going to be up near East Grand Boulevard in Jefferson, where we're going to do, about 60 more units of affordable housing. We're also going to add a business incubation center there. So we want to take the business incubation center out of the church and put it in the neighborhood to be able to help the people to be able to start a business within that center. So there's going to be about 60 units of affordable housing with a business incubation center on the ground floor. And then we want to take some of the community-based businesses owned by the people in the neighborhood and actually help them be the store owners as people enter the Island View neighborhood, which is right at the foot of Belle Isle.
And Reverend Berry, as we switch gears here, going back to what's happening in L.A. right now, the military is on the ground in L.A. The civil rights protests taught this country quite a bit. We saw religious leaders from all denominations during the movement. What can we learn from the past in terms of winning over the majority of the American people and trying to motivate those to stand up for their rights?
Well, the most interesting thing is anytime we look at injustice against anybody, we have to stop and think about, where is that going to end? Is there such a thing as contained discrimination or something that appears to be contained that is going towards one group? I believe that we all want to see what's right. We all want to be able to pursue happiness. We all want to be able to live in a free country. We just need to be careful. We just need to make sure that the rights of individuals are being maintained. We need to make sure that human rights are being looked after, that the community is being looked after as a whole. And we just need to pay attention, because we know that if we don't pay attention to our history, we're doomed that it will be repeated if we're not careful. And during the time of the civil rights movement, that's when everybody came together. It wasn't just black people alone, but it was also black and white and other people coming together. And it was also different denominations, different faith leaders, people coming together saying, hey, we want to make sure that justice is served. We want to make sure that people's rights are being maintained. And we're all human beings. We're all human beings, and we all have human rights. And we want to make sure that people's human rights are maintained.
And before I let you go, Reverend Berry, this Saturday, there is the No King protests that are happening, not just across the state of Michigan, but across the country as well. What do you want to tell those who may want to hit the streets, or who are thinking about it, or maybe even those who are just interested in knowing more about it?
Yeah, well, I know I'm going to be at Clark Park in Detroit, and I know that protest is supposed to take place. That gathering is between 1 and 4 o'clock, and I know people are going to be gathering there. And we definitely want everything to be peaceful. We want people to come out, and we want them to have their voices heard. We want people to know about the issues, and we want to invite people to come out and stand in solidarity for human rights, and to stand up to be the best possible person that they could be as Americans. That's what we want people to do.
Reverend Berry Randolph is leader of the Church of the Messiah. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro, Reverend Berry.
Thank you so much, Tia.
This Saturday, No Kings protest will take place across the state of Michigan and the entire country. Stay safe. Coming up, Detroit's Senior Olympics are happening right now. We'll hear from the event's director and former competitor about why the games matter. We'll be right back on the Metro. You all stay right there.